And I've really had to force myself to even do anything on this platform anymore because every time that we turn on these TVs or whatever and we watch anything, it's the same flavor of shit. And there is so much, like, I literally don't even know, like, where to even begin. And I guess probably the best place to start is just with today being the 22nd, Wednesday of July, 2026. They, when I say they, I mean the Illuminati, uh, little hat wearers that a lot of people is still calling quote unquote our government. It's not our government. We have been infiltrated by the Illuminati. And if you're not aware of the Illuminati, it's made up of Rothschild, Rockefeller, Demichi, Freeman, and on and on. I don't remember all their names, can't pronounce half of them. But the main purpose for doing this is because I don't care if not one ever watches this. I guess, honestly, I really do care, but the main purpose for this is for a documentation that I do not accept and will not accept anyone trying to tell me who I can worship and who I can't worship. There's only one God made up of three. That's the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. The Son being Yahusha, or Jesus, if you will. Today, the Illuminati invaders held another vote on to merge our military with Israel's military. Now, if you asked Giggle, old Google there, if you Giggle it, you will see that it'll try to tell you, such as if you was to ask it about the Noahide laws, that they are bringing forth. Now, whether or not they actually get them implemented into we the people, God only knows that. But I will tell you this, all of the numbers are leaning on their side right now, because in November they are having the first Noahide Council made up of different delegates from different countries. And absolutely the U.S. Incorporated is definitely included in it on that. And I would venture to say they're the first ones doing it. Now, we as Americans want to believe that we still have a country, but we don't. We Americans, true Americans, don't have a country. In 1871, they, being the demonics, and that's what I'm calling the demonics from here on out, will be the Illuminati little hat wearers. But the demonics in 1871 switched out, and if you giggle this, it'll say, no, that didn't happen, and so on and so forth. But you have to put all your faith in Giggle, because who is it that owns Giggle whenever you giggle something? Oh yeah, it's the demonics, right? Just like with anything else, the demonics, they own the anything, food. They went from Philip Morris and the tobacco industry or whatever. When that pony was running dry, what did they do? They just bought into places like Nabisco and all of your food and stuff now. That's why, what are we doing? We're stuck looking for little tiny marks on these bags and stuff whenever you go to the quote-unquote Goyim slop store, to find something that's not been poisoned. And we know that Israel is absolutely not only capable, but that they are doing the poisoning, because they poisoned the wells over in Gaza back in I think that was 1948. And that's just one in particular that we know of. And now we're having these forest fires and everything coming down from the smoke or what have you, coming down from Canada, and they're saying how bad that the smoke is and this, that, and the other. Now we learn that now they're saying there's another outbreak of some sort or whatever up in Canada also. More vaccines and so on and so forth. But at what point do we say enough is enough? I've done said that. Enough is enough. I've called the so-called representatives, which are not representatives, old Dave Taylor of District 2 of Ohio. He's nothing but a butt plug for the Illuminati's president for U.S. Incorporated. Trumpy there. He's self-admitted demonic. Now, there's a lot of people that they're going to say, well, no, there's nothing wrong with those demonics or whatever, But I would just tell you that you are completely wrong, and you are putting yourself squarely on their side if you defend them in any way. They have what's called their Talmud, and if you look that up and read it for yourself, you will see what it actually says. And what it actually says is to exterminate you and your children. Literally, it says that. Now, right here, just for a short little moment here, or for however long I deem necessary, but look here, when I pull up YouTube, this is the very first thing that popped up on the brainwashing algorithm that they want me to see. So, but look here, what did pop up?
I want you to watch something. This is Jack Hibbs, a prominent Christian Zionist pastor. Listen to what he says.
That's how you create a cult using Bible. You pull one verse out of context and you create a cult.
He's right. And he just described his own movement, because that is exactly what happened. One verse, Genesis 12:3, pulled out of context, reinterpreted by a convicted forger in 1909 and used to build a coalition.
And look at this demonic emblem here that they, claim is the Star of David or whatever. That it is not. That's Baphomet or whatever it is, but it's of Satan.
That has sent hundreds of billions of American dollars to Israel and helped drag us into a war with Iran. And it's not a conspiracy, okay? There are Foreign Agents Registration Act documents, official U.S. government filings, proving that Israel is actively funding operations right now to keep that belief alive.
Hear that? Now, when she says they're funding it, well, who funds them? Who gives $10.5 million a day? Last I knew of, $10.5 million a day to Israel. We do.
In your church, during your worship service, on your phone. This is the story they don't want you to find. The truth about the propaganda hiding it, and the one question at the center of it that nobody in this movement will answer. So the story most American evangelicals tell goes like this. The Jews are back in the land God promised them. Prophecy is unfolding before our eyes. Israel's rebirth in 1948 is proof the Bible is true, and Jesus is coming back soon. It's clean and simple, but according to most theologians, it's also wrong. Watch this clip from the Lake Point Church podcast, a Texas megachurch debating whether the creation of the modern state of Israel is biblically prophetic. And they even have their own resident theology expert, Paul, on the panel. Now first, watch what happens the moment he begins to offer a dissenting view.
So the question is that thing that happened in 1948, the founding of Israel, prophetically significant? Basically, does the Bible predict it?
What do you mean by that? With me.
Paul disagrees with it.
It's hard for me not to go, yes, I don't know, dude, it's
Paul,
hard.
1900 years of Israel not existing, just like that, in the 1900s, it's a nation.
What's wrong with you, Nick Fuentes?
Wow.
I'm gonna start calling you Nick.
No, please don't.
They usually call him ChatGPT because of his Bible knowledge, but the second he disagrees, the host compares him to Nick Fuentes, one of the most extreme anti-Israel commentators online. Deplatformed, debanked, but Paul pushes back anyway, specifically about the interpretation of Isaiah 66, saying that Israel is the nation that was created in a day in 1948.
It's a very new and novel interpretation that it was about the refounding of the Jewish state.
But he keeps going. And what he says next is the most dangerous thing in the entire episode.
A lot of street level evangelical Christians in America think that this is just the Christian view.
Yeah.
When actually it's a very new and novel one that doesn't, to your point, that doesn't mean it's automatically wrong, but it does mean that you shouldn't just swallow it. You have to ask, hey, why did the same people read these same verses and come to very different conclusions?
So I went looking for the answer to his question myself. And what I found was evidence the Christian Zionist network doesn't want you to see. So why do people read the same Bible verses and come to very different conclusions about
Christian Zionist. Oxymoron.
Israel? Well, to start, not everyone is reading the same Bible. Most American Christians aren't just reading different translations of scripture, ESV, KJV. They're reading scripture with someone else's commentary or opinions printed right next to it. And that commentary has been shaping what they believe about Israel, end times, and their political obligations for over 100 years. But here's what most don't realize, okay? This interpretation is new. It was invented in the 1830s by a 19th century Irish lawyer named John Nelson Darby, a man who quit the bar to split the church and rewrite the entire end times timeline. He is known as the father of dispensationalism because he invented something brand new, an idea that had never existed in Christianity before, the pre-tribulation rapture. Some call it the secret rapture. It's the belief that Christians would be taken to heaven before the end of the world chaos that's described in Tribulation. And crucially, he taught that Jews would return to Palestine and play a central role in the end times, including a rebuilt temple. Now, again, this was a brand new idea. The early church never taught it. Darby invented it in the 1830s, and powerful British politicians loved it because it mapped perfectly onto their own imperial ambitions in the Middle East. If Christian theology could be redirected to support a Jewish return to Palestine, it gave Britain religious cover for expanding its empire into the region. Darby also invented something theologians call the two-track system. He claimed that Jesus offered two entirely separate paths to salvation. Track one, the church, Christians who accept Jesus as Lord and Savior. And track two, ethnic Israel with its own covenants, promises, and future that the church does not replace. Now, this was a radical departure from everything Christianity had taught for 18 centuries. Many theologians still consider it heresy, but despite that, it was well-funded, quietly spread, and eventually embedded inside existing denominations. So they had the theology, right? But now they needed a way to spread it far and wide. Enter Cyrus Scofield, a disgraced American lawyer, a convicted forger, and the man.
Well, we know he's a disgrace because I already said the word lawyer.
Who took Darby's dispensational ideas and printed them directly into the footnotes of a Bible, right next to Scripture itself, so that generations of readers would absorb his commentary as if it carried the same authority as the Word of God. The Scofield Reference Bible was published
Blasphemy.
by Oxford University Press in 1909 and updated in 1917. That version was distributed aggressively. It became the standard reference text in seminaries and churches across America, especially within the Southern Baptist Convention. Now, here's where it gets specific. You know, Genesis 12:3, the verse Ted Cruz famously quoted to Tucker.
Growing up in Sunday school, I was taught from the Bible, those who bless Israel will be blessed, and those who curse Israel will be cursed.
That's God's.
Yeah, and Ted Cruz, there's a big old demonic himself, because along with old, what's his name, Graham there, that fortunately for us, that just passed away or whatever, you know. What the heck is that sick son of a, what is his name? Anyway, same as Trump there. They're all demonics.
Speaking to Abraham thousands of years ago. Now, Scofield's commentary note on that
Lindsey Graham.
verse read, "It has invariably fared ill with the people who have persecuted the Jew, well with those who have protected him. The future will still more remarkably prove this principle." A promise made to Abraham, now reapplied to how modern nations should treat Jewish people, and by extension, a modern Israeli state that wouldn't exist for another 31 years. But it didn't stop there. Okay, after Scofield died, Oxford kept revising the notes. And by 1984, the new Scofield Study Bible added an entirely new line. For a nation to commit the sin of anti-Semitism brings inevitable judgment. Do you see the evolution? Scofield says nations fare ill when they persecute Jews. Then, 36 years after the creation of Israel, Oxford rewrites it as divine judgment for anti-Semitism.
And just so anyone knows, or just for the record, I have not previewed this. I mean, this is, you're watching this right along with me there. So we're watching this together, and I didn't intend on watching this much of it, but you know, it's quite interesting when you watch things like this and then you find out just how big, well, we can't even say that, can we? You can't really say how big the lie is because we keep learning more and more all the time, right? So, but I'm telling you, for me, I've already learned enough that I know that there is so much stupid shit going on. Does anybody believe in a constitution? Anybody think we still have a constitution, if there ever was one? If you think we have a constitution, put a 1 up there. If you don't think we got a constitution, put a 2 in the comments.
Which should be noted that the ADL's current definition of anti-Semitism includes, quote, language or rhetoric or actions that demonize, delegitimize, or apply a double standard to the Jewish state, Zionism, and Zionists. The interpretation gets stronger, more absolute, more political with every revision. But then modern Christian Zionist leaders took it the rest of the way, okay? John Hagee, founder of Christians United for Israel, has said,
anti-Semitism brings the wrath of God on men and nations who permit it. God has made a very clear promise to all anti-Semites. I will curse those who curse the people of Israel.
And that's a lie. The way that they're interpreting it. But actually, if you read the Bible, you'll find out who he's calling Israel is not a physical place, but well, I guess it truly is a physical place too, but it's anyone that believes in Yeshua, you know, the entire thing, that he came from heaven, that he lived as a man, and that he died on the cross, and that he was resurrected and on the third day and ascended back into heaven, you know. And it says all you have to do is believe that and you're saved. So, you know, there's a few other things you should do, certainly, you know, repent and be baptized for sure, but you know, the Bible says that all you have to do is believe. So, and that is Israel. And if you read it, and once you understand and get the interpretation, when you genuinely receive that from God Himself, and He'll show you, when you understand that just for you, not because somebody else told you or whatever, then you will understand when somebody's cursing Israel, he's talking about the land of Israel, which is your land, your mind, your belief.
Quote, the man or nation that lifts a voice or hand against Israel invites the wrath of God. So Schofield started with a historical observation, Oxford turned it into a warning, and then Hagee turned it into a blatant threat. And there's a financial thread worth noting here. Schofield had close ties to a Wall Street lawyer named Samuel Untermeyer, a committed Zionist. But Untermeyer wasn't just any lawyer. No, he was the first American attorney to earn a $1 million fee. He was instrumental in
Oh, yeah, well, nothing to see here, right?
the establishment of the
And again, with the word lawyer.
Federal Reserve System. And when Hitler rose to power, Untermeyer personally launched and bankrolled the international boycott of German goods. He's been called the super lawyer who took on.
You know, how sad is it that on this here demonic platform here, who absolutely hates you and I, and they definitely can't stand the in question Constitution, if we have one, because we have to talk in codes, don't we? You can't just call them exactly what they are, which is pretty filthy, you know. I mean, I really can't think of anything else filthier than the demonics are, but, you know, we're having to use words like unalive instead of just saying the way that it is. But speaking of that, you know, talking about these lawyers being trash and shit, which they are, you know, have you ever heard of legalese? You ever heard that word, legalese? That's just a demonic language that these lawyers and the rest of them use so that they can confuse the rest of us, you know. And they always say, well, are you going to get a lawyer? Are you going to get a lawyer? Well, they want you to, because as soon as you do, then you step in. And I fell for it too for years and years. And, you know, thankfully for me, it took as bad as I hate to say this, but it took old demonic Trump there getting in and doing what he did before I really said, okay, I'm going to set aside everything that I think that I know, and then I'm going to learn, the way that it actually is. Not the way I want it to be, but I'm actually going to see things for what it actually is. So there's a lot being revealed, right? Anybody want to go to war with Iran? Anybody out there? Anybody want to do that? Because I sure didn't. And more importantly, well, I shouldn't say more importantly, because we are the most important, right? And our children. But, well, God first, our children, our family, then us, and then our country, if you want to be technical. So, but, what are we doing? I mean, what does it take before we say enough is enough? Well, I've already said it, and I have called these demonic bastards, and I've actually told them to get the hell out of our country. And for those of you out there, if you're really looking for a good platform, incidentally, not getting paid anything for it or anything like that, but I've been using Upscrolled, and it's by a Palestinian, and he actually come up with Upscrolled, which is a really good platform. You don't have to worry about what you're saying or anything like that. I mean, you talk about free speech, and it's coming from Palestine, right? So we'll get back to the program here and listen to this, though, because we got to do away with these demonic little hat wearers, I'm telling you.
Hitler. So he was kind of a big deal. And some historians believe Untermeyer helped fund and promote Schofield's career, including the connections that led to Oxford University Press. Now, that connection is debated, but what isn't debated is this. Someone funded Cyrus Schofield's very comfortable lifestyle while he rewrote the theological foundation of American.
Yeah, and who do you think funded him? I'll guarantee you it's the demonic little hat wearers.
Evangelical Christianity. And that someone moved in the highest circles of American finance and political power. And speaking of finance and political power, around the same time Schofield's reference Bible was gaining traction, something else was happening on the other side of the world. The Rothschild banking family had been physically...
Now, here you go, Rothschild. A very important name to remember, because when people's talking about the Illuminati, here you go. Here's the number one name that always pops up, but it's not that it's the most significant. It's just the most recognized. But listen to this.
Purchasing land in Palestine since the 1880s, and in 1917, British Foreign Secretary Arthur Balfour, a Christian Zionist himself, issued what became known as the Balfour Declaration, an official British commitment to establish a Jewish homeland in Palestine, addressed to Lord Lionel Walter Rothschild. But here's what's significant, okay? And most people don't talk about this.
Now listen to this shit.
The Balfour Declaration was deliberately addressed to Lord Rothschild, a strategic choice suggested by Dr. Chaim Weizmann, a chemist born in the Pale of Settlement in the Russian Empire. In his autobiography, Trial and Error, Weizmann wrote that when Balfour asked him to whom the forthcoming declaration should be addressed, he suggested Lord Rothschild rather than himself, even though he was the president of the English Zionist Federation. Weizmann openly explained the mutual benefit, saying there was a, quote, coincidence of interest between Great Britain and a Jewish Palestine. He told British leaders that a Jewish Palestine would serve as a safeguard for England, especially for the Suez Canal. And a fun fact, Dr. Chaim Weizmann was the first president of Israel in 1948. So British imperial strategy and private Zionist financial interests were working in the same direction at the same moment.
Oh,
By
and how it
1948,
affected us.
When Israel was officially declared a state, millions of American Christians had been reading the Schofield Bible for 40 years. This is why a lot of Christian Zionists say that the modern state of Israel fulfills Isaiah 66. Can a nation be born in a day? They point
Okay, and again, Christian Zionist, what a oxymoron that is. That's insane because anybody that knows anything about the demonics of Israel, if all you have to do is if you just read the Talmud that tells them that they need to kill the Christians, period. You know, I mean, but for no other one. If that's not bad enough, you know, and even the molesting of the children and stuff like that, it literally says a child less than 3 years old, if they molest that child, they've done nothing wrong. Insanity. This is insanity. You know, and you know what? This doesn't have to be necessarily a Christian thing, but this is just a moral thing or just an American thing. We created what we created, which is what everybody else wants. And when they can't have it or change it, what do? They come in like what these demonics have done and infiltrated our government and took it over and did what they've done. And today they're actually holding another vote again to see whether or not to join the militaries. You know, well, let me tell you what's significant about that. I believe, and I know this, that this really isn't our military. It's made up of Americans, but this is already Israel from the Illuminati, because what I mean, could you imagine like if somebody, even tomorrow, they come out and they said, hey, we're going to join our military with Canada or with Mexico or with Russia or whoever, you know, you'd be like, hell no, this is America, right? And you'd be wrong. So why is this different? I mean, especially with Israel, you know.
To May 14th, 1948, when Israel declared independence. But here's the timeline. The Balfour Declaration, that British promise, came in 1917, which was 31 years earlier, and Jews had already been returning and building settlements in Palestine for over 60 years before 1948, heavily supported by Rothschilds and others. So it wasn't exactly a nation appearing out of nowhere in a single day, right? It was decades of planning, immigration, and institution building that reached a climax on that one day. But Christians were, in a very real sense, pre-programmed or indoctrinated to receive that moment as the fulfillment of prophecy. And I'm going to prove that this indoctrination is still going on today. And if you're just now realizing how deep this goes, hit subscribe, like, and hype this video, because we are about to go even deeper. I want you to meet someone. He appears in an Israeli-produced documentary called Till Kingdom Come, a film examining the relationship between American evangelicals and the State of Israel. And I think the Israelis who made it knew exactly what they were capturing.
Every good thing we know, all the things we love about the Bible, they were given to us of the Jewish nation. Israel, their people, the Jews, are better than all of us. They're better than all of us. And you need to accept that.
That is Boyd Bingham IV speaking to children in his congregation at his church, Binghamtown Baptist Church in Middlesboro, Kentucky, telling the children of his congregation that the Jews are better than them. And he goes on.
Anybody believe that? Anybody believe that your children is not as good as they are? Anybody believe that here?
This is where, with the kids, where we start our indoctrination.
All right, well, that's right. With the kids, that's where they're going to start their indoctrination. Yeah, absolutely.
I know that's a strong word to use, indoctrination. Did it, get such a bad reputation? But that's where it starts. That's where it started with me.
Where the indoctrination begins. He acknowledges the magnitude of the word indoctrination,
Yep.
but then doubles down and says that is where his support for Israel began as well. Later, Boyd's father, William Bingham III, says something else in a sermon at that same church, this time with a very important Jewish woman named Yael Eckstein sitting in the pews. Listen to this.
There's a battle on the way, and God is going to miraculously intervene. All the wealthy owners of the NBA basketball teams and the movie moguls and all those wealthy Jews you were with in Los Angeles, many of them are not practicing Jews. Some of them are even atheistic. And their heart's going to be turned again to Israel, and the money's going to pour in, and then that end time temple will be built on the Temple Mount.
That Jewish woman, Yael Eckstein, runs an organization called the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, IFCJ. Her entire role, day to day, is being the bridge between American evangelicals and the state of Israel. And her father built that bridge in 1983. IFCJ exists because decades ago, Pat Robertson, the famed televangelist, invited him onto a Christian broadcast network telethon. And in Yael's own words,
known as a bridge builder between Jews and Christians, Yael Eckstein. Good to see you again.
Thanks, Pat. Good to be here.
My father, he raised something like $4 million in like 30 minutes. That's when he realized these Christians want to be part of this.
That telethon became a foundation, and that foundation became one of the largest channels of private American money flowing into Israel, in addition to everything the US government sends. And surprisingly, when the documentarian asked Yael how it felt to sit in that church and hear a sermon where Jewish people are woven into a Christian end times timeline that they don't share, she's pretty transparent.
As a Jewish person, whenever you hear Jesus intertwined into Old Testament teachings, it's a trigger. It's a trigger. But then immediately, I'm like, this is me. I have to separate myself from the situation and look at it through godly eyes. The starting point is that we're different. They are Christian, they believe in Jesus, and that's okay. I'm going to interpret the Bible through Jewish eyes. And it's a paradox. And once you get 5 steps ahead of that, it gets really freaking complicated. But that's why I don't go those 5 steps.
Watch that answer closely. She says that as a Jewish person, whenever you hear Jesus intertwined into Old Testament teachings, it's a trigger. But she chooses deliberately not to follow that discomfort any further. Because the moment you do, you have to ask the question, which this entire relationship depends on you not asking. Why are people like Yael and other Jewish people who disagree with this theology aligning with the American evangelicals who believe it? And the documentary reveals the reason perfectly. Right before Yael visited that Kentucky Baptist church, she had been at a gala in Beverly Hills, where IFCJ presented a $5 million gift to the FIDF, the Friends of the Israeli Defense Forces. You know, the military that has been accused of committing war crimes. Yeah, that IDF. And it's right after bumping elbows with Miriam Adelson, Trump's biggest donor.
Yeah. Now, here you go. Miriam Edelson, see, $250 million to old Trumpy Dumpy there. And that's just what they say out loud. Old Edelson there is like, she's Illuminati for sure.
Hello. Nice to meet you. Honor. I was with you at the Hanukkah party at the White House. Yeah.
And her father bragging about how through their foundation, Christians have donated over $1 billion to Israel.
The International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, where Christians have given through us $1.4 billion to help Israel and the Jewish people.
Yeah, because
Are you tired of trying to follow Jesus alone?
Because that's what we need to do, right? Is to give all that we can to them, right?
Kentucky church, located in Middlesboro, Kentucky, which has one of the highest poverty rates among small towns in the country, with 40% of the town's population living in poverty. And we see Yael visibly taking in homes that look abandoned, witnessing real poverty in real time.
We have kids that live here that we pick up every week. They live
That's
here.
where they live?
Yeah,
That looks like a house that's been abandoned, not where people live.
that's the way a lot of these houses look.
But then she walks into that church, sits through a sermon she fundamentally disagrees with, and takes a $25,000 check from a congregation in one of the poorest towns in the nation.
Anybody catch that? So I don't believe in you, and I hate you, and I definitely want to do what the Talmud says, and take away your living status because you are Goyim. But I'll take that money.
Ever since our church has been involved in fellowship.
And do you know why that they can do that and they feel nothing? Is because if you read the Talmud again, it literally tells them they can steal from us, they can lie to us, they can basically anything that they want to do, and even make slaves out of us if that's what they choose to do. Well, I gotta tell you, I really, really mean this too. I hope they try that around me. I really do. I mean that as, and they can put metal cuffs on you and stuff like that, sure. But, they better make sure that they get them on first.
With your father and yourself, we've been blessed. And today we have $25,000 more. And we're going to keep putting the blessings of Abraham on us.
$5 million for the IDF, $25,000 pulled out of one of the poorest towns in America. And that's the model working exactly as.
You're not giving to the Lord whenever you're just giving. If you just give and you have not a clue as to the assurity of where it's actually going, well, you just put it in the hands of the devil, because the devil is what? Uncertain and corrupt. So I don't care if it's $1. If you're not for sure that it is in fact going to do good for someone who is good, then you just helped out Satan with that.
Designed. And Yael Eckstein isn't naive. She hears the trigger, she feels it on camera in real time, and she suppresses it anyway, because the money keeps flowing and the mission keeps moving. She built an entire career on stopping herself 5 steps before the question her own gut was asking her to face. Why are Jews partnering with evangelical Christians when they fundamentally disagree? So much so that she is triggered to hear their beliefs that differ from her own. And IFCJ is far from the only organization doing this. It's one charity in a long list of organizations built to turn American evangelical devotion, and in some cases fear, directly into financial support for the modern state of Israel. But to understand how deep this goes, you need to know one key term: Hasbara. In Hebrew, it simply means explanation. But in practice, it's Israel's official public diplomacy operation. So their coordinated effort to shape narratives, aka propaganda, especially here in the United States. They take Hasbara so seriously that back in 2016, they held an international competition for videos promoting the Jewish state. The deputy foreign minister said the initiative sought to, quote, shift the approach of Israeli public diplomacy from the defensive to the offensive. And what is one of their most effective Hasbara pipelines? Well, Christian Zionism, of course. And we now have the official government documents to prove it. This is a Foreign Agents Registration Act filing. FARA requires anyone acting as an agent of a foreign government on U.S. soil to register with the Department of Justice. Now, this is an official government document, and what's in this one is extraordinary. On September 27th, 2025, a California firm called Show Faith by Works, LLC, registered under FARA as an agent of Israel's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. In their stated plan, the largest Christian church geofencing campaign in U.S. history. And here's what that means in practice, okay? They draw invisible digital boundaries around specific churches and Christian colleges in California, Arizona, Nevada, Colorado, and beyond, timed specifically around worship services. And any phone that enters those zones during church hours receives targeted pro-Israel ads and content. So you're sitting in a pew and your phone is being worked on by a foreign government's influence operation. Oh, and they don't have to legally alert the church that they are doing this, by the way. But they go even further, okay? They lay everything out explicitly. Their messaging, pro-Israel messaging, like messages to pastors and Christians about Israel, its history and its people, its biblical significance, its place in the Christian New Testament, and more. And anti-Palestinian state messaging, which includes some interesting contradictions, like Palestinians elect Hamas's leadership, immediately followed by there was never a state of Palestine at any time in history. So Palestinians are responsible for their leadership, but also don't exist as a people with a state. Big one. But it goes even further, okay? They document their grassroots organizing, which includes pastoral education and resources, such as videos from a variety of pastors targeting different types of churches, youth groups, Black churches, and Catholic targeting by a Hispanic Anglican pastor. But they don't only want to target the churches through their pastors. No, they also detail plans to target Christian colleges, Christian events, Christian social media influencers, and Christian podcasts. And wouldn't you know it, Lake Point Church, the same church from the podcast who called their own theology expert Nick Fuentes, appears on the list of targeted American megachurches in this filing, along with hundreds of other churches in the region. And on top of all of that, they...
You know, this Nick Fuentes that she's talking about, I mean, I watched him and stuff, and, you know, what they've done is if you find anyone that you think, oh, okay, well, here's somebody like Candace Owens or something like that, that you think, oh, well, this person's making a lot of sense, or I'm getting a lot of good information from them. Well, the next thing you know, they'll come out and they'll say, oh, no, they're really working for, you know, Israel, or they're doing this or they're doing that, so you don't know whose side that they're on. And just like, wouldn't you know it, that our Bible has already told us, you know, that in the last days there'll be confusion. You won't know right from wrong or wrong from right. Right will be right, or right will be wrong, and wrong will be right. So that's why you really, really got to dig in and try to use your own discernment to figure this stuff out. And I got to tell you something. It is a difficult task. But that's why I'm on here, because, you know, some things are just cut and dried, aren't they? Some things you don't have to be explained to understand. And that's why I keep saying it, and I'm going to keep saying it. They have got to go. I mean, they have... I mean, think about this. What they say is 94% of the Illuminati government. I don't even like using that word, but the infiltration Illuminati are funded by AIPAC or Israel. So if that's who they work for, and, you know, all these dual citizenships and stuff, okay, well, here's the way I see it. Why is there anyone, not just the way I see it, but the way that it is, why are there even one person that is a representative, if there was to be one, to we the people, that would even have any kind of a tie whatsoever with somebody else. Have you guys seen, has anyone seen the video of when they go up to these invaders and they ask them right up in Congress and stuff, they say, Israel first or America first? And watch them, man, they defend Israel right now. They're not even saying America first. I mean, that should be so easy to say, right? A good example is if you watch old Cash Patel, and old Dan Bongino, before they got into where they said they would do a lot of good with the FBI and so on and so forth, man, they talked so clear and so straight and believable and stuff, and then as soon as they got in there, by golly, they was almost as bad as old Trumpy Dumpy, wouldn't they? I mean, you can go back and watch Bongino, and when they're talking about the files and everything, they look scared to death.
A first warning weather update has arrived.
Laid out plans for a touring mobile museum called the 10-7 Experience, with virtual reality, designed to visit church parking lots and campuses, which seemingly got reworked into a mobile, Israel History Museum, according to their most recent supplemental filing. So I guess they realized maybe that churchgoers don't want to experience the atrocities from 10-7 in a VR headset. And the total contract value is approximately $4.1 million. This is Hasbara, targeted at the exact audience that forms the backbone of Christian Zionism in America, and it's registered with the United States government. Now, I want you to look at this timeline carefully, okay? Because Show Faith by Works LLC wasn't the only company to file a FARA document on behalf of Israel in September 2025. There was not one, not two, but actually 3 major Israeli-funded operations filed within days of each other. On September 18th, 2025, a different FARA document was filed on behalf of Israel. Brad Parscale, Chief Strategy Officer at Salem Media Group, the company that distributes the Charlie Kirk Show and other Zionist programming, registers his firm, Clock Tower X LLC, as a foreign agent for Israel. Their $6 million contract, later bumped to $9 million, includes integrating Israeli government narrative messaging directly into Salem Media properties. Then, on September 26, 2025, Bridges Partners LLC files with FARA to disclose the Esther Project, a paid influencer campaign recruiting U.S. social media creators to push pro-Israel content. And
well, isn't that something? So, in other words, just like another thing to think about is just like whenever they said, "Oh, here, take these here poison shots." I mean, these here machinations, that are so good for you, that will, ensure that you don't get sick in the future, and you can ward off the vid, and so on and so forth. Lies. Well, if something's good, you want more of it, and nobody has to tell you to take it, right? But when they start telling you, oh my God, you remember the idiot that they had on there that was pretending to eat the burger, and then he said there was French fries with it also, just to get people to take their big old fat poison shot. I mean, it's the same stupid shit right here, right?
On September 27th, 2025, Show Faith by Works files its full 86-page operational plan to, in their own words, create the largest geofencing and targeted Christian digital campaign ever. And if all that wasn't enough, they close out the year with the Hasbara finale.
A partnership between Israel's Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Friends of Zion Museum led to the unprecedented visit.
Okay, remember, all of them are living by the demonic Talmud. That means they want you and yours to die by it.
As the first time in history, the state of Israel has officially partnered
with 1,000 strategic pastors.
In December 2025, Israel flies over 1,000 American evangelical pastors to the country on all expenses paid trips, the largest such delegation in Israeli history.
One of the goals of this gathering is to strengthen Christian support during a time of growing global anti-Semitism. They say the pulpit must speak louder than the propaganda.
So it's just right here's here's like the ultimate piece of shit right here. This right here, if you can't read, yeah, you can read it up there. Okay, old Huckabee there. It should be Huckabee Ishmael or something, because that's the ambassador from U.S. Incorporated. Well, actually, right there it says U.S. ambassador to Israel. Okay, but is U.S. any different? No. What they're doing is you and I are in the way. Anyone that gives a shit about wanting our country to be our country, and to maybe, with Lord willing, the new America, if we can do it, because it ain't going to happen unless we start acknowledging the Lord first and foremost. But old Huckabee right there, he is, I don't know how many people watch Tucker Carlson, and I still am on the fence about him. I don't know which way to even think about Carlson there, but I know this, he does speak awfully strongly, and he even went and supposedly opposed old Huckabee here, and so on and so forth. But you know what they say? They say that whenever we Goyim, when we need a hero, this is what they say, that they'll create us one. So when we start thinking, oh man, this is bad, we need somebody to step up, well, they always present somebody like Tucker Carlson, who is very smart. He can read really good, and I mean, he comes across, non-threatening, and so on and so forth. Very articulated. I mean, he just is, he really is an intelligent guy, but, they're not going to get somebody that don't know how to read, or that's not smart. They really, the one thing that you have to say about these demonics is they have absolutely done a brilliant job of deceiving we the people. But this is a piece of shit right here, and I mean a demonic piece of garbage, inbred, pedophile piece of shit.
I think an extraordinary time for pastors to go to their pulpits and to speak with clarity and with boldness, and to push back on the anti-Semitism.
And push back. Push back. Well, if it's so wonderful, if they're so, supposedly, good, then why would there be all this public outpouring against them to begin with?
Bigotry that is being pushed toward Jewish people and toward the people of Israel.
That was also called the Wailing Wall.
You probably remember Michael Burry.
They was showing the Wailing Wall there. Let me see if I can get back here.
Push back on the anti-Semitism, the bigotry that is being pushed toward Jewish people.
Yeah, okay. Notice how the guy is rocking back and forth there. Here's something that I never knew. I just thought it was part of their, praying ritual, wiggle diggle back in the day, prayer thing that they did or something. But when you see them actually worming around like that, that's them trying to or having sex with their God.
And toward the people of Israel.
And they return home as unofficial ambassadors trained to carry the pro-Israel messaging back to their congregations. Now, I'm not telling you what to conclude from that timeline, but I am going to ask the question out loud. Why was there a flurry of FARA filings in September 2025? What happened then? Well, on September 10th, Charlie Kirk was assassinated. But here's what makes this even more suspicious.
Yeah, no kidding. Charlie Kirk, whenever they did that to him, think about it. They didn't say, get him someplace, get him squared away, undercover, or whatever. Because when you have immediately shot him inside the building or had a safe spot to take him to, right around the corner or something, instead they manhandled him like a Raggedy Ann doll or something. And what do they tell you if somebody gets hurt or something? They say, leave them alone, leave them lay, keep them as still as possible, don't move their neck, and so on and so forth, But no, they went running through the crowds with who knows if it was him or whatever now with all the... But yeah, you don't move a crime scene, and hell, they immediately started taking down cameras, and all within the same week, they poured that entire area with brand new concrete. They ripped it all out and poured it. Who does that? Come on. You all are saying nothing about that. It's insane.
None of these operations started in response to his death, because according to each of those FARA filings, the contracts were already in motion. Clock Tower X filed on September 18th, but the contract was being drawn up in August. Bridges Partners...
Yeah, absolutely. These representatives are not representatives. Well, actually, they are representatives. They are representing their leaders. They're representing the Illuminati's for sure, They're not ours. They're not we the people's representatives.
Filed on September 26th, but Project Esther had been paying influencers since June 16th, 2025.
Now, and think about this. You have these people that come on and they say, oh, okay, I'm going to do something real because we see all these people going on and claiming to be, these movies come out, that's fake. You can't watch the news because they twist it, so on and so forth. Then you have these... So, and think about it, they really did a great job too, because then they created the influencer. The influencer. What the frick do we need influencers for? This is such bullshit. I said it many times on my channel before, and I'll say it again. If I was to run and jump off of a barn or something like that into a pile of nails or some shit, I'd get 1 million views. But when you're trying to speak up for your children, or maybe those ones that's in the tunnels and stuff right now, that can't fend for themselves, that can't say anything, the ones that's being eaten literally as they're, being birthed, and they can't speak for themselves. But I would rather deal with the real. If you want AI, you can go get AI. But don't we have enough of that? Isn't that how we wound up where we're at now? Enough of the bullshit. I'm not going to put in on a bunch of AI shit. And I'm not going to try to say things that's not real and everything. I'm going to show you and back up everything that I find. And, I've got people now that actually show me things and that's bringing me stuff. And that's what we got to do. We got to work together. Because watch this ignorant shit from these demonic little hat wearers, man. And, something would not be so bad, if it wasn't for the fact that they have a book, the Talmud, that literally is saying what they're doing. Killing us. It literally says to kill you and your children. And how can anybody ever support anything like this?
Showing the campaign plan to peak in September, with the monthly budget jumping to $250,000, the highest of the periods shown. Show Faith by Works filed with FARA on September 27th, but sent its first $326,000 monthly invoice to Israel via Havas Media Group on August 25th, 2025, meaning the geofencing campaign was in the works over a month before the official filing. And to make it even more bizarre, Charlie Kirk's own memorial service was allegedly geofenced as well. Charlie's memorial was held on September 21st.
Think about that.
At State Farm Stadium. Days later, Andrew Colbert, TPUSA spokesman and executive producer of The Charlie Kirk Show, bragged that their tech partners had tracked 277,000 devices at that memorial.
Our partners that do sort of geotagging with devices, they told us that they tracked over 277,000 devices in the vicinity of State Farm
A first
Stadium
warning weather
in Glendale,
update
Arizona.
has arrived.
277,000.
Sheesh. Insanity. Absolutely insanity. Charlie Kirk, why in the hell did they like immediately, concrete that place, within 3 days of it happening?
Devices at a memorial service tracked. So was all of this a coincidence? I don't know, but I think that you deserve to know that this timeline exists. And the organization that is now carrying this torch most visibly into American evangelical spaces is Turning Point Faith, Charlie Kirk's own faith arm. And I've been digging into who is running it, who is funding it, and what its actual agenda is. And what I have found deserves its own video, truly. So if you want that investigation, let me know in the comments. So here's what we know. A theology called dispensationalism was invented in the 1830s by an Anglo-Irish aristocrat that conveniently served imperial ambitions to establish a Jewish state in Palestine. It was widely distributed through the Schofield Reference Bible's evolving commentary placed right next to Scripture. Turbocharged by 100 years of money, influence, and free trips to Israel, and foreign agent operations registered with the United States government, targeting your church, your pastor, and your phone while you sit in the pew. And now we have a name for what that is. A cult is a group or social movement characterized by an intense devotion to a charismatic leader, a specific ideology, or a set of practices. Experts distinguish cults from healthy communities by their use of manipulative control, psychological pressure, and isolation to exploit members. Manipulative control, like shaping what gets preached from American pulpits through foreign-funded pastoral sources. Psychological pressure, label anyone who questions it an anti-Semite, a radical, Nick Fuentes. Isolation, make sure no one in the pew ever hears the other side of the theological argument. And if they do, discredit them before they finish their sentence. Remember that word, hasbara? It relies heavily on Christians never asking one specific question. When Christian Zionists are challenged on their unwavering support of the modern state of Israel, they go to Romans 11 and they close the conversation every time. Here's the Lake Point podcast giving their explanation of Romans 11.
In general, yes, that there is blessing that Christians should expect to accompany blessing ethnic descendants of Abraham, and people get into a million questions about the Ashkenazi Jews, and I'm just like, hey man, here's all I know. The greatest concentration of descendants of Abraham in the world, they live in Israel.
Yes.
45, I think it's 45%.
It's like around 45% of the world's Jewish people live there.
But here's what they almost never talk about, okay?
Yeah, listen to
in
this.
In John 8, Jesus is speaking to the Pharisees, the Jewish leaders who rejected him and who claimed to be children of Abraham. He says, "You are of your father, the devil,
Yep.
and your will is to do your father's desires."
Yep.
He was a murderer from the beginning and does not stand in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks out of his own character, for he is a liar and the father of lies. That's
right. That's exactly right.
Jesus. in the New Testament talking to the Jewish leaders who rejected him. And in Revelation 3:9, he warns about those of the synagogue of Satan who say that they are Jews and are not, but lie. So who is he talking about? Who are the people claiming to be Jews who are not? Because if you follow that question all the way to the end, the entire theological foundation of Christian Zionism starts to crack. And I think that's exactly why we should be asking it.
All right. Well, I did not mean to promote this here gal's channel, but I gotta tell you, I'm actually glad to shout out to Olivia Swing or whatever there. I really thought that was highly educational, and she was spot on in everything that she said, well spoken and everything. So yeah, good job. Matter of fact, I'm gonna give her a thumbs up right there, as you can see. And I think we'll save that to oh yeah, I think we'll put it under as you can see there, the demonic Jews. That's right there. So now there's something else that I want to jump back on here, but I'm going to end this here live stream right now. That way, station identification. Just kidding. That way, everybody can go. Yeah, go to the phone or whatever you got there and call. We're going to see if we can't do us a really good another live stream here, because there's so much stuff that's happening right now, and by the time I can't state this enough. I'll see something and I'll think, man, how can people not know this, but it never ceases to absolutely blow my mind, like how many people in fact do not know that Donald Trump is a Jew. Matter of fact, that's probably where we'll start whenever we come back. So, hey, thanks for watching. Even if you watched a little bit of it, I certainly appreciate it. If you give it a thumbs up, just let me know that you're one of us, we the people that's fighting back and standing up. I'd appreciate that. Thanks for being here. A huge shout out to Miss Naoma. I appreciate you very, very much. Thanks for the comments. And all right, we're out. I think I gotta figure out how the heck you turn this off. God bless.